I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, Wayne, can you now grab the
Let
screen
me
and start sharing?
let me try. I'm working on it right now.
Okay, so while Wayne is doing that, let me introduce Wayne. So I think most people know Wayne, but if not, um, Wayne's been a member of CMC for about 3 years, and he has become a remarkable trip leader and instructor for several of the schools at CMC. But I do want to warn you, Wayne loves winter camping school. So if you find yourself on one of his trips or classes, doesn't matter what season it is, be forewarned that he will try and recruit you to winter camping school. And now Wayne's going to tell us the joys and wonders of winter backpacking. Thank you, Wayne.
Louise, thank you. Thank you. And so just to let everyone know that registration is still open for winter camping school, which starts on like the second week in February or so. So if you haven't signed up already, you still can sign up for it. And I'm sure we'll be able to find a spot for you on one in one of the groups. Uh, what I wanted to talk about today is this is not going to be like the mechanics of winter backpacking. Is if you want to learn that, go take winter camping school, or you may already know it from your own personal experience. What I'm going to try to address is kind of the the unique experience. If you haven't had an experience of winter camping, in particular winter backpacking, it's truly unique experience. But then the question that always, always, always comes up for those people that haven't experienced this joy, which is, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to stay warm, right? I'm going to get cold type of thing. And what I wanted to introduce here tonight was kind of a different heuristic for everybody. We've come to know and understand winter and staying warm in winter by going and turning up the thermostat or starting a fire or jumping into our car and putting the heater on, something like that, some external source of heat warming us up. In winter, in a particular winter backpacking, we don't start fires or anything like that. So the source of heat is actually your own human body. And I'm going to get into some of the ideas that I think about, not only whether it's winter backpacking, but anytime I'm outside for an extended period of time in the winter. Because if you are hiking, just a regular day hike, and you stop hiking and you immediately start to get cold, then you haven't figured out how to keep yourself warm in the winter. If it's only through you moving aggressively all the time, that's a really, really dangerous situation to be in. On the flip side of that equation is winter backpacking has all elements from really aggressive movement, so a lot of internal heat generation, to you're sleeping out overnight where you are not generating much heat at all. And how do you stay warm in this diversity of conditions? So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about all the mechanics of winter backpacking. Take the school if you want to learn that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is my discussion topics tonight are what's so special about winter backpacking, the magic of staying warm, meals fit for a king or a queen, your cozy home, and then I'm going to, if you haven't tried this, I'm going to try to give you a incentive. Why not give it a try? This picture over on the right hand side was from one of the overnights we had in winter camping school last year. And my, oh my, does that not look really, really cozy right there? And it was actually a really, really cozy. And it probably got down to, I don't know, maybe zero, -5 that night. And we got about 8 inches of snow that came on top of us. It was a great night. It was a really great night. Okay. Okay. So what's so special about winter backpacking? First and foremost is you get a level of solitude that you rarely find. And important about this is we never experience crowds out there. We may see the occasional person out there on skis or in snowshoes, but we can go anywhere we want practically and set up camp. The landscapes really do transform into something magical. I'll tell you a experience that I had a couple years ago is we after dinner we took a little bit of a moonlight hike and we looked up in the sky and we saw this it was clearly a satellite going across the sky and it was pretty still pretty bright out. We lowered our eyes and we looked across this meadow and there was a moose eating some willows in the meadow. It was a really gorgeous night there. The light is unreal. Sunrises and sunsets are amazing. What I'll tell you is camp life becomes really deep. I have a great time camping other 3 seasons, but sharing a meal together, starting to feel a little bit cozy with all of your friends that are there. It really is a wonderful experience. On the flip side is you also build some real outdoor skills. You really have to be on your game on layering, moisture management, cold weather systems, navigation, decision making, because your safety margin is so much more narrow. It's also challenging in a really, really good way. On none of my trips that I take, nor in the winter camping school, do we go above tree line. So we are not talking expedition level type of overnight camping here. Is we are below tree line. It's a lot warmer, a lot cozier, a lot less windy as well too. But you do challenge yourself and you really learn what you're capable of and you have some sense of accomplishment. And then obviously you notice things that you miss in the winter. Animal tracks are all over the place. And it's always a lot of fun to try to figure out what was going on with the animals that night. Okay. Okay, so here's some of the pictures from some of the winter camping trips that I've taken. In the upper left-hand corner is in actually a snow trench with a snow block roof. That's actually amazingly warm there. There's some other pictures of some of the tents there. We use our red lights when we're walking around. We did just after dinner, we did some hikes around. The kitchen is always a great place to be. A lot of people having fun. You do notice in the lower left-hand corner that the woman in the picture there is actually smiling. So you are capable of smiling on a winter camping trip as well too. Just a lot of fun. Just a lot of fun. Okay, we're going to talk about the magic of staying warm. Kind of the way I think about it is your body is in continuous thermal negotiation with the environment. But kind of once you understand how heat leaves you and being able to more importantly control that, then you actually have a much better experience. We're also going to talk about heat generation. And so it's this balance between heat loss and heat generation that you have to be really mindful of under different conditions in winter backpacking that really makes the experience a good one as opposed to a freezing cold one. I'm sure many of you have seen a picture like this on the right-hand side before. Is we're going to talk about convection, we're going to talk about radiation, we're going to talk about respiration, we're going to talk about evaporation and conductions, which are the major heat loss mechanisms in winter that you really have to manage and control really, really carefully. So controlling heat loss, staying warm, more importantly, staying functional and safe in cold environments. So we have to maintain our core temperature at about 37 degrees C. Cold environments, as we all know, accelerate heat loss faster than we can generate heat. So what we have to do is do things to be able to manage heat loss, because if we don't, then you're going to get onto that hypothermia curve, which is a very steep curve. You're going to start losing dexterity, judgment, fatigue will come on, calories will start burning recklessly, and then obviously you have a hypothermia risk, which actually can happen above freezing. So wind, moisture, altitude, inactivity amplify all these losses. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. And understanding, I think this is a really important thing, understanding how heat loss allows for smarter clothing, pacing, shelter, clothing, as well as food choices in the winter. It's not like you put on a down jacket and you go out and have exactly the same experience as you do the other 3 seasons of the year. It doesn't work like that. You have to manage it much more carefully. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of science here. And so I suspect that I'll lose half the people here, but I want to make a couple big points on this one here. So here's all those mechanisms that you saw for the person sitting down on the cold rock. But I want you to see the second column. The second column is how important that heat loss mechanism can be. So radiation, particularly at night, so this is infrared heat loss from your body, can be as much as the total heat loss of 35%. So a third of the heat loss can come from that. The reason being is dark sky. You're generating, you're warmer than the dark sky above you, and you're going to radiate heat out there. The reason why it's so impactful is you look at the physics equation over there, which is there's two temperatures up there, temperature of the environment and temperature of skin. Both are raised to the fourth power. So even if you have two modest sized numbers, when you raise them to the fourth power, you got two very large numbers, and the differences becomes very, very large as well too. Convection. Convection, we've all experienced this, is when you step into the wind, particularly when it's cold, you got this wind chill effect here. If you don't manage this one really carefully, it can be as much as 30% of your total heat loss. So 65% of your potential total heat loss comes from radiation convection. The next one on the line is it's approximately 15% is respiration. And respiration actually has two components to it. The first one is you take in cold air, you warm it up, you breathe out warm air, you've expended all that energy to warm up that air, and now you're exhaling it. That's the first term. The second one has to do with air comes in very dry, you bring it into your lungs, gets really moist. When you exhale it, it's not only you're exhaling warm air, but you're exhaling warm, moist air, which will then evaporate and take heat away as well too. So I tell the people that when I'm doing a winter hike, that respiration is critically important. One of the important things is you can get dehydrated very quickly just by breathing. So on my hikes, either you drink a lot or you don't breathe on the hike. It's a simple equation there. Conduction is actually a little bit easier to control. All it has to do is you look at the equation of the temperature difference between your skin and whatever cold surface you're sitting on, so snow, rock, frozen, insulate yourself between that and the cold surface, and you start managing that. And then evaporation, this is you never, never, ever, ever want to get to the point where you are noticeably moist, noticeably sweating in the winter, because water is 25 times as thermally conductive as air. That means it's just going to sap the heat away from your skin like you wouldn't believe. So it can be 10%, but if you get really, really wet and your clothing gets wet, you've got to really watch out for evaporation as a way of taking heat away. These are all the mechanisms. Now what we have to do is figure out ways of controlling these heat loss mechanisms such that we try to maintain as much of our core body temperature as we possibly can. So on radiation, what we want is a lot of these things keep recurring again and again and again. A lot of insulating layers, because loft traps the radiated heat. Cover high loss areas, head, neck, hands. Down in synthetic puff layers during stops, and reduce the exposed skin that you have. Convection, everyone knows this one. Put some shells on and get out of the wind. Get out of the wind. And usually we'll find a stand of trees to get into as opposed to standing out in the wind. But it can sap your heat very, very quickly. Respiration, key thing that I'm sure we've all done is put a buff or some face covering over our mouth or nose. That's going to help. Slower, more controlled breathing. So you only want to be a maximum of 60% of what you're capable of doing in the backcountry. One, so you don't sweat. And secondly, is that you're not huffing and puffing all the time because that's actually going to lose heat through respiration. Stay fueled and more importantly, stay hydrated. And then don't go for crazy exertion spikes. Conduction, this is one, put something between you and whatever is cold, not only your backside, but also your boots and your mittens as well too. Sleeping pads, in the winter camping school, we have a whole section on how to handle and set up your sleep system, that you have an adequate R value underneath you, and then avoid prolonged ground contact. And then evaporation, I just mentioned on it, is start cold, hike warm, moisture wicking base layers, and change damp layers during breaks. These are just some of the hints at being able to control that heat loss, but it's really important that you work all of them, not just one or two of them, because it can catch up with you really quickly. Before I go on to that, before I go on to controlling the managing the food, any questions about what I've covered so far? Did anything come up in the chat, Louise?
Unmute 1 second. Um, uh, just one comment saying you missed the best part of winter camping in your introduction. Any guesses
Okay.
what that is? Should I tell you the answer?
I think it's actually camping with Louise Campbell Blair.
Not in the winter. That will not happen. But no, Paul says there are no bugs in the winter.
That's true. That's another good one. Well, the other thing, and you learn in winter camping school, you actually get to sleep with your food as well too. As a matter of fact, to a degree, you want to sleep with your food. So yes, yep. There's a bunch of other advantages as well too. Okay,
Okay, that's
let's
it.
keep going. Managing heat sources. So remember, we're trying to control heat losses. Now we're managing heat sources. And remember, this is now not going to the thermostat on the wall and turning it up. There is no thermostat. There is no wall. There is no furnace. The only furnace that you're really going to come to depend upon predominantly is your own body. And first and foremost is muscle activity, because muscle activity generates a healthy amount of heat, as we all know when we're hiking along. But when we stop and we start setting up camp, for example, we're going to use less of our muscles. We got to keep that in mind, that where our heat is going to be coming from predominantly is from our own body. But you don't want to get it to the point, as we talked about before, where you start sweating. So movement, whether that be movement in the large muscle groups or in small muscle groups. So I was on a hike the other day to Lake Helene, and my hands started getting cold. Just my fingers started getting cold. And rather than futzing around with another pair of gloves or a pair of mittens or anything like that, what I did is all I did was just for about 10 minutes, started moving my hands. Small muscle group, so they're going to take a while to move up, to warm up, but it works. Is you start moving your muscles where you are cold, and it will start to warm up. The other thing that we always do is we have some short walks around camp. So we do a little bit of exercises. I love isometric exercises in our sleep system. If you start just to get a little cold, and move just enough to warm up before sweating. And this is something you're going to have to monitor throughout the night, because when it comes right down to it, your body is going to go through an energy cycle. And at some point or another in the night, it's going to get to a lower energy, and you might notice that. Where you are going to get your heat from is the fuel that you feed your body. So your body cannot generate heat without calories. You want to eat immediately when you're cold. So one of the things that we teach in winter camping school is we're eating all the time. We're just eating all the time. We recommend for a winter overnight backpack that you start thinking about give or take 5,000 calories to take in. So you've got to work at eating 5,000 calories throughout that 24-hour cycle. When you focus on carbs, it's going to be quick heat. When you focus on fats and proteins, it's going to be kind of longer lasting. So when you eat certain things throughout the day is important for what you're preparing your body to be doing overnight. Uh, Drinking warm fluids, always really nice, but don't depend upon warm fluids in and of themselves to warm you up. A lot of it has to do with making sure that you are getting enough of hydration there, because oftentimes we don't drink enough water, particularly if the water is cold. So you want to be well hydrated. Remember, the important thing is that what is moving the heat around your body is your circulatory system. And if you start getting dehydrated, as little as 2% dehydration, it's going to impede your circulation system, your blood. In the simplest sense, think about like blood starting to thicken. That means it's not going to go to your extremities as well or as quickly. And when that happens, then what happens, your extremities are going to start to get colder quicker. And then you have a thing called the shell core effect, where your body now starts shunting blood back into your core to preserve your vital organs. And you get into that cycle there, and it gets very, very difficult. So you never, ever, ever want to get behind that curve. Chemical warmers. I know that we've come to love our chemical warmers. Never, ever think of them as a replacement for calories and movements, i.e., your own body as a generation of heat here. Chemical warmers are nice to kind of work on certain specific spots at certain specific times, but you don't really ever want to get in a position where you're dependent upon them. It's back to the original thing. You're looking for a thermostat on the wall to turn up, so some external source of heat. Chemical warmers may help you marginally, but when it comes right down to it, they're more for an emergency situation, or if you got really cold hands or really cold feet, something like that. Is they're not going to be able to heat your whole body up. So as we talked about here, the heat sources for winter camping are kind of pretty simple. Is body movement number one, food to fuel that body movement, hydration to make sure that the digestion is working, as well as your blood, you're staying well hydrated, and then chemical warmers, let's just call it for spot warming, kind of on an as needed basis, but don't depend upon them. Here, when we're kind of going to sleep at night, before you get yourself into this insulation system, make sure that your body is warm. So eat. We always do some light movement, drink something warm. And then what you want to do is seal all that wonderful heat that your body is, producing right now within the insulation. Cold body in a warm bag stays cold much, much longer. Don't think about your sleeping bag and your sleeping system as a way to warm you up. Think of your body as a way to warm you up. And now the insulation system, the sleep system, is just helping your body to be able to do that quicker. I'm sure everybody who's done winter camping knows about the hot water bottle, hot trick. It stays warm all night long. You move it around in cold spots within your sleep system. It's a wonderful device as an external source of heat, particularly when your body is starting to go into lower energy levels overnight as well too. The other nice thing is you wake up in the morning, you're in your sleep system, you haven't been drinking that much throughout the evening, you want to hydrate, you got a warm drink right there waiting for you in the morning. The thing I want to tell you to avoid is once you start shivering, you are down on the hypothermia curve, dangerously low, dangerously low. So shivering does a great job of increasing the heat output, but it rapidly burns calorie and energy. You have the danger of becoming exhausted. And if shivering continues, what you really want to do is get back to the normal thing, insulation, shelter, food type of thing. If you start shivering, it is a real red flag. It is not something that you should come to depend upon in any way, because you are on that very, very dangerous curve. So, kind of the magic of staying warm. Staying warm in the winter is about balancing heat losses and heat sources, not relying on any one single trick or piece of gear. You have to control the heat losses, manage the heat sources, and it is a very, very proactive process that you're thinking about all the time, not a reactive process that says, okay, I should have done this and now I am behind the curve on this stuff. So if you start getting cold, other than like marginally cold, if you start getting cold, you are like way behind the curve and you have to rebalance that equation of controlling heat losses and managing heat sources. Louise, let me just stop there a second to see whether there are any of the thousands of questions that I can address now.
There's nothing in the chat, but I have a question. So, what do you do if somebody on your trip does start shivering and you haven't, maybe you haven't got into your sleep system yet, and someone is really starting to shiver and not sure if they can get through the night?
Yeah, so shivering is an emergency, and think of it as an emergency. Oftentimes, people don't admit that they're shivering, so we kind of look out for each other. And what you need to do is you need to provide that person with two things: one, insulation, and then external sources of heat. So what you want to do is wrap them up in a sleeping bag or multiple sleeping bags. You want to put hot water bottles in with their chemical warmers to the point where they stop shivering. When they stop shivering, you now want to get a whole bunch of fast calories into them so that their body can kick into gear and actually start generating more heat. Because if they're shivering, they have gone through a lot of their glycogen sources, their sugar sources, and what happens is that they can be exhausted by just sitting there shivering. So you have to heat them up immediately. If you can't get them to warm up that way, then you need to evacuate them. This is shivering is a real emergency that oftentimes isn't noticed until it gets really, really bad. That makes sense, Louise?
Yeah, that's great. And I think the really important point is there that people don't admit that they're cold.
Right.
People don't want to be a problem for whatever reason on any trip, so they will not admit that. So I think that's really important too.
And you see that on day hikes, and you see it even more. You have to watch out for it more carefully on overnights as well too in
Right.
the winter. In the winter. Okay, let me keep going then. Okay, so meals fit for a king or queen. So I'm going to talk about meals just kind of at a high level here, and kind of why meals, particularly in the winter, are just so delicious. They are absolutely delicious. One is a physiological importance. Is we've already talked about this. Is it's a source for heat generation. Uh, Down the list here on the left hand side, you see it. It's you have some immediate heat input into your body, but don't think of that as that's going to do that much. It's your body itself, your muscles in your body that are really going to generate the heat. But it is fuel for that heat generation. Obviously, it's improved circulation. Your core body is warmer. That means your blood flows to your hands and your feet better, as well as hydration. Hydration is critically, critically, critically important in the winter. It's something you have to watch out for. In addition, there is the wonderful psychological and morale benefits. Is like, why do meals taste so good in the winter? One is kind of the mental warmth of just having, eating hot food when everything around you is cold. It actually is a wonderful experience to sit around the kitchen that we build and share, kind of stories with each other as we're preparing our food, eating our food. It is a wonderful experience. If you think you have a good experience around the kitchen, the other 3 seasons of the year, you have a better one in the winter. And then obviously there is a group cohesion aspect that we're kind of like all in this together. And I will tell you, there's always a lot of conversation and always a lot of laughter around the winter kitchen that we have. though you wouldn't expect it. You think it's cold, everybody's sitting there huddled in. No, it is an awful lot of fun. You obviously have a with the food sensory pleasure. So bring foods that you really like to eat. Because remember, you're trying to pack 5,000 calories, give or take, down your gullet every 24 hours. You might as well be eating stuff that you think is really, really good. I always notice that there's enhanced flavor in the cold. I usually have to spice it up a bit to really get the full flavor effect. You have different meals with different textures. Just don't go out and get the whatever the dehydrated meal or freeze dried meal of the day is. Get some stuff that you really enjoy eating. And then obviously there's always an aroma aspect of this one as well too. And then finally, there's some practical winter advantages. It's very efficient energy. You get a lot of calories in these meals. So select the meals that are going to deliver, the hot meals that are going to deliver a lot of calories, that they're easy to digest. Uh, it encourages eating. You're going to look forward to having dinner together, even when your appetite drops. The cold suppresses hunger, elevation suppresses hunger. There's always a lot of suppressors for hunger, but it's really nice gathering around for a hot meal with everybody else in the kitchen and having a good time together. And then the important thing is kind of after you eat your meal, you want to now your body is charged, your body's furnace is charged for the evening. So the kind of calories that you've eaten in your meal are not going to be the fast burning ones, but the longer sustaining ones, particularly staying warm in a sleeping bag overnight. And the big thing here is like you want to actually start the digestion process. We typically take a small moonlight hike around or something like that, get our whole body nice and warm, and then, about 4:30 or 4:45 rolls around, the sun has long since gone down, and you jump into your sleep system about 5 p.m. at night. And then you get the joy of sleeping like 10 or 12 hours overnight there. A little bit of tongue in cheek there. Uh, the important thing is hot meals turn surviving into living. You really want to enjoy your meals. In the winter, hot food is not a luxury, it's a strategy. So you got to think through that as well too. And sometimes truly it is the best part of the day. It's there's usually a lot of fun around the kitchen there. These are some additional pictures about your cozy home. You'll see Mike there building that snow trench with a snow block roof. You can see a picture of Sharon in it in the evening. But even in your tent can become very, very cozy as well too. You'll notice that some of these tents, it's important to really control how much ventilation you have versus uh, moisture management in the tent. And so some people have built a little wall around there to control ventilation. It's a little tricky. It takes a little bit of skill to figure it out for the conditions that you're in. You'll notice that we are always in the trees there. We are never above trees. Above trees is a completely different world, completely different world. You got to deal with it very differently. But it can be a really, really cozy environment that you have in your tent there. Uh, the most critical part of your tent system is controlling the conductive heat loss. So sleeping pads, R value matters. We talk a lot about that, how much coverage you have. And well, it's the ground, as it says here, is an infinite heat sink. And so you really want to have good components underneath you to be able to insulate you from the ground. Your sleeping bag is primarily for reducing radiative and convective heat losses. And so temperature ratings are important in a sleeping bag. Get good stuff. I'll tell you that my sleep system in the winter is not a $800 minus 10 degree sleeping bag that I will only use one season of the year. I have a 20-degree ultralight sleeping bag that I put inside of a 20-degree ultralight quilt, and the two of them together worked marvelously. Every once in a while, I'll bring in a little liner that I can put in them. But when it comes right down to it, they work really, really well. We all know down versus synthetic and the features and the insulation type. The important thing here is you want a snug fit, but not too snug. Because what happens is the more dead air space you have between your skin and the outside, the warmer, more insulative capability you will have. So you have to be really careful about not making it too snug. And then the whole idea is that this is trapping body generated heat, and it's trying to prevent overnight energy depletion through those heat loss mechanisms that we talked about before. Sleep clothing, kind of think about it as wearable insulation, and think about it as like fine tuning your warmth and moisture control, not as the primary way of staying warm. So just like when you're hiking around the winter, base layers is is reserved exclusively for sleeping. And then remember, you're trying to minimize the amount of moisture that your body generates. Yes, you have some insulating layers if needed, but don't overdress because we're back to compressing reduces the insulative effect as well too. Head is really, really important. So having something on your head that's kind of sticking out of the end of the bag there. And then you always want to go in with, my socks are always a little on the moist side, dry socks as well too. And it really extends a sleeping bag performance, meaning the ability to keep you warm and maintains comfort throughout the night. One of the things is one night it's about -5 or so. I woke up about 2:30 in the morning, and I started feeling a little cold. I even had the hot water bottle going and all that type of stuff. Started feeling a little bit cold. What I did is I kept in my sleeping bag a Snickers bar. I ate the Snickers bar, did some isometric exercises, get those large muscle groups generating some heat. 20 minutes later, I was just fine, warm, fell right back asleep again, no problem at all. The final one is controlling convection and precipitation, which is your shelter. The tent or snow structure. Snow structures are amazing because we have such a high air content in the snow in Colorado here. It insulates, and it insulates really, really well. The site selection is important. You saw where we positioned those tents in those pictures out of the wind and away from cold sinks, meaning low points as well too. And then, as we know, convection, number 2 on the list, dramatically increases heat loss, and the shelter stabilizes the temperature overnight. Moisture management is really critical in the winter here. So you have to have enough ventilation to reduce condensation. And you'll know you haven't made it the right choices that if you wake up in the morning, you touch the side of your tent and it snows on you, that means you haven't managed the condensation very well because all the moisture coming out of your mouth, that is where it's coming out of your mouth, is condensing on the inside of the tent, freezing on the inside of the tent, and you have a snowstorm in the morning. You always have to be very careful about dry gear. So if you have some wet clothes and stuff like that, there's ways of managing those wet clothes so it doesn't affect your sleep system. And then wet insulation, as we all know, loses loft and warmth. And then moisture compounds heat loss 25 times as thermally conductive as air. And it becomes even more of a challenge over multiple nights. As we mentioned before, a preheat strategy is kind of charging the furnace and sealing in, eat a hot, calorie dense meal, drink warm, light movement, hot water bottle or chemical warmers, and you have now charged up your sleep system, seal that all in, and then have a good sleep overnight. So the important thing here is winter sleep is a system. It's a system. All the components have to work with all the other components, and failures, or if you haven't thought through one area, degrades the entire system as well too. And so hopefully I'm getting across here is you kind of got to think through heat loss and then heat generation, all the different ways that can happen, and then what you need to do to mitigate that difference between those two so that you can actually stay warm overnight. It's not, as I said before, going to the wall and turning up the thermostat. So,
Okay,
my,
Wayne, we have some questions before we
okay,
maybe.
sure. I'm almost done.
So
Yep.
Can you discuss balancing hydration versus the need to pee in the middle of the night?
Yes. So, so there is a marked difference of opinion about whether you should get up and pee in the middle of the night. Because remember, you're all tucked in, you're nice and cozy, all that kind of stuff. Uh, my recommendation is you should be hydrating enough so that you have to pee in the middle of the night. You should be hydrating enough so you have to pee in the middle of the night. Now, depending upon how brave you are, uh, what I'll do is I will quickly get out of my sleep system, go outside my tent, pee in the middle of the night, get back in, and I'll fall asleep. It will be so much more comfortable falling back asleep. And God, it is so nice to just jump right back into a nice warm sleep system that you got there. Do not hold it. Do not struggle with it. The Your bladder will win. Your bladder will win. You will not win on this one. For some people, they bring in a pee bottle into their kind of tent and do their business in a pee bottle. The two things I say about that: number one is make sure that you know that your pee bottle is well marked. It's not your water bottle. And then number two is make sure that you have particularly good aim and control, because remember, if your sleep system starts getting wet, all that wonderful heat is going to now be conducted away really, really quickly. It's not going to be an environment that you want to be in. I have never done that. It's too dangerous for me. I am not skilled enough. I'll pop out of my sleeping bag, go to the bathroom, come right back in, fall right back asleep. And I the moment I get the urge to do this, I take care of business right away. It's much more pleasurable when you get back in.
Okay, thank you for that. And then another question. Do you have any tips for somebody who's got Raynaud's disease? Because if you've got Raynaud's, you can
Yeah, yeah,
be difficult
yeah.
to perform on hikes and backpacking trips.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's like graduate, we're talking about like undergraduate level stuff right here. For graduate level stuff, knowing and understanding your own body, and then what you have to do over and above kind of the introductory stuff that I've talked about here, is it's something that you need to work out with yourself, with your doctor, and whether you can manage that condition in the winter. Because I do know people that do have that condition and come out overnight, but they are kind of monitoring it really, really. It takes a real skill to be able to monitor that. And if you have that condition, I'm sure you have that skill a lot more than I do here.
Okay, thank you. And then one more. What are your thoughts on trekking pole tents in snowy conditions? So this person has
Yeah,
an X-Mid 2, I guess that's the Durston, and is
yep,
thinking about getting a more solid tent.
yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I have an XMate 2 and I have a few freestanding tents. So a couple things with regard to tents. And when you sign up for winter camping school, we'll take you through all the details of this. Is I am not an advocate for trekking pole tents in the winter, because what happens is you make a platform in the snow. So the really, really nice thing about sleeping in a tent in the winter is you make your own platform in the snow. It is as level as you want it to be. So it's not like you're searching around for a spot all the time. You find any spot and you can actually make that very level platform. The challenge with it is, even though we when we make the platform, it is pretty solid. There's a way that we do it. We let the snow sinter and everything like that. It's not perfectly solid. So I know I have an XMID 2, so that means that the handle side of my trekking pole goes down and the pointy side goes up. I wouldn't trust the handle side at being able to sustain the pressure of the pole and holding the tent up. I always use a freestanding tent in the winter. A lot easier to manage, a lot less futzing around. Not that you can't do a trekking pole tent. It's just one more thing that you got to figure out how to manage really, really carefully. There are ways that you can come up with doing it, like putting a little solid platform under where you put your trekking pole down and everything like that. But it's just another thing to do. That's all.
Okay, that is the end of the chat at the moment.
Okay. So then let me go to my last slide is my inspiration is I am begging you, why not give this a try if you haven't given it a try? And if you've given it a try decades ago and you say, oh, I didn't like that, well, it's a new world out there now, completely new world. The gear is amazing. I did it when I was in my 20s, had a bad experience, came out to here to Colorado, and only a few years ago picked it up again. Wonderful. Solitude, stunning scenery. You build your skills, and that means skills not only for winter camping, but skills for all the other seasons of the year as well too. The important thing here is if you manage this carefully, comfort can be learned. So it's not that, oh my God, I'm going to be cold. You can learn how to be warm and stay warm and cozy in the winter. Somebody mentioned this before, no insects. Yep, that's really great. You get unique wildlife experiences. One of the winter camping trips, we actually had a moose walk right through the middle of our camp. And moose wasn't going to do anything, but it was a really interesting experience that you normally don't get the other seasons of the year. You build a lot of community with the people that you go out with. You now have you turn off the off season. So you get to go out and enjoy the outdoors all 4 seasons of the year. For me, I'm still working on personal growth. I'm not sure whether I've grown at anything, but I'm going to still keep working on it. You have better campsites. You can go anywhere you want, but you have really, really marvelous campsites. The hot food tastes better, peaceful evenings. You have skills that you can transfer to all seasons of the year. And then you come out with a new perspective of engaging the outdoors. So if you already love the outdoors, winter camping doesn't take that away. You figure out how to make it work. It really does deepen it. So that's what we went through today. Special about winter backpacking, magic of warmth, meals fit for a king or queen, cozy home. Why not give it a try? Thank you very much. And this is a paid political advertisement here. Winter, there's winter camping school. Is registration is still open. I think our roster is full, but don't worry about that. If any of you want to come and join winter camping school, I'll kick some students off of my group and we'll have you right in the middle of winter camping school. So thank you very much.
That's great, Wayne. We have more questions, so don't go away anywhere yet. So I think you've almost got a new recruit for winter camping. Elizabeth said you almost had her at $5,000, 5,000 calories a day. So maybe you can
Oh,
work with
oh,
her.
so let me okay, I'm gonna seal the deal right here. I'm gonna seal the deal right here. You say, oh my goodness, 5,000 calories a day. Well, that's going to be heavy. I'm going to have to carry that. I got all this extra gear. No, 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 no. In the winter, especially in winter camping school, we will teach you how to do a do-it-yourself sled. So you do not have to haul all of this stuff on your back now. You put it in a sled behind you that gracefully slides through the snow behind you most of the time. So don't worry about the weight on your back. In winter, they have this wonderful thing called snow, and it has a tendency to be slippery and slidey. And you put a sled on top of that, and you can carry anything you want.
Okay, you've got a recruit. Not
Okay.
Elizabeth. She's still on the fence, but Patrick said he is going to join you. He or
Okay, great.
sorry, Parag, I don't recognize the name. And this person also wants to know what you do about water. Do you melt the snow to get your water?
Yes, water is sitting right next to you, literally right next to you. We're sitting around the kitchen. We literally take a scoop and put the snow right into our pot. I will tell you that you have to have a lot of fuel because you have a pot full of snow. When it melts down, you get like a half an inch of water. at the bottom. So you are forever filling your pot with snow. You are using a lot of fuel. We talk about this. We talk about the kind of stoves that you want to have in the winter, that type of stuff. Uh, but you melt snow. The nice thing is, the important thing is, don't pick the yellow snow. The yellow snow, not so great. But the white snow that's freshly falling right around you is you just put that in your pot. Here in Colorado, what we say is you need to get that up to 160 degrees. So you don't need to boil that snow, but we usually end up boiling it anyhow. Uh, but remember, it is snow. It's like trapping rain that has fallen onto the ground that you now no longer have to worry about. Is typically so deep, it's so far off the ground that you're not going to get much in the way of germs. So we're staying away from water sources that we would typically have the other 3 seasons of the year, where you have to either filter them or boil them or chemically treat them or anything like that. Is grab the snow right behind you in the winter kitchen and just keep melting it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. So I think just will, if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask away. And if there are no other questions, then unmute yourselves and let's give Wayne a big thank you.
Wayne, yeah, I wanted to ask, and I can get the video going here to make it a little less awkward. I had,
I know Paul
yeah,
really
we met the
well.
other day, yeah.
Yes, I know Paul really well.
Uh, so when we didn't snowshoe, um, the
We're getting there. We're getting there.
we did. It wasn't a lack of effort on our part. It was,
Yeah.
yeah. So for stoves, and I asked this in the chat, it's kind of on the canister stoves, which I never really used when I was younger. I always had, like, I think I had a much older version of the Whisper Light type of stove,
Yeah,
the
white
liquid
gas, white
fuels,
gas,
white gas
white gas.
stoves.
Yep, yep.
Um, Now, I know that canister stoves have gotten better. If you have a regulator, you can go to lower temps or higher altitudes, so forth, and
There's like
the
different
inverted
mixes that they have.
ones. And
Yes, yes,
so I've
yes.
heard that. I wasn't sure what your perspective was on it because I do have a Whisper Light. It hasn't been used in years, so I do need to make sure that's still functioning, of course.
Yep,
But
yep,
but
yep.
do you feel it's warranted to jump to that? Because I know that's a lot more kind of pack size weight and sometimes
Yeah, but
hassle, whatever
remember,
else,
don't
right?
worry about weight. Don't worry about weight. It's
Right,
in
right.
this wonderful sled that's,
Oh, I've
being,
used those. Yeah,
sliding
they're
behind
great.
you. I used to be a canister. Other 3 seasons a year, I use a canister stove. The two reasons why I don't use a canister stove in the winter are: one, you have to do a lot of temperature management of the canister as well
Hmm.
too. A lot of times you bring that into your sleeping bag, with you to stay warm, that type of stuff. Even when it is out there at the kitchen, there's other ways you can do to manage it. Never, never, ever, 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 ever. If you have a stove on top of a canister, never put a screen around that. Very, very dangerous. And so I've gone to a white gas stove. White gas stove takes a little bit of skill to learn how to use it correctly and not blow yourself up. But the two nice things about it is I never worry about running out of fuel. It just you just have so much more fuel source associated with that way if you just bring a small bottle of white gas. And the second thing is it has a much more dynamic temperature range. So don't worry about a white gas stove not working if it gets too cold out. If the canister gets too cold, it's all condensed in the canister. Then you got to start thinking about inverted and all kinds of crazy. I like a white gas stove in the winter, but I know many, many people use canisters, the larger size canisters, and they make it work as well too.
Okay. Good to know. Thanks. I think the
Sure.
canister stoves have come a long way in the last 20 years since I last looked at
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Just don't trust the manufacturer when they say they have a winter blend. Those winter blends are marginal at best. Marginal.
Okay, nothing else in the chat room. Does anyone else have any questions for Wayne? This is great, great information. I'm learning a lot, but I think I'm still going to stick to summer backpacking.
Okay, I now have my next objective here. So Louise, you're not getting away that easily.
So yeah, there's a lot of thank yous coming in the chat. So I
Yeah,
think
it was a pleasure
hey,
doing this. Thanks for putting up with me, everyone.
thank you very much, Wayne. We just stop the